Welcome to the Luxury Code, where we decode the mindset, the marketing, and the business approach of successful luxury brokers. Super excited to have longtime friend Christophe Choo, luxury real estate agent from Beverly Hills, legendary luxury real estate, and Jason Pantano. I have an outcome today, Christophe.
You have an outcome?
I have an outcome.
I'm shocked.
There is so many people that are fearful, lack the confidence. You know what I'm talking about as a coach. They say, God, I would love to have the high end. I would love to sell more expensive real estate. And it's even in their marketplace.
Yeah.
But there's just this like anxiety and fear because, you know, those high-end sellers are so different from everybody else.
Oh, they sure are.
I know, right? So what I want to unpack today is maybe some of the origin story of you getting in.
Okay.
I want to get into how do we get over the fear. I want to talk about marketing. I want to talk about, is follow-up different? Are presentations different? Like if somebody was just landed on this planet, right? Thinking of David Bowie right behind me, right? Ziggy Stardust, landed on this planet and decided not to be a rock star, but instead be a rock star, right? In the real estate business. What would they have to do to break into Beverly Hills or Palm Beach or New York City? So I want to explore all that. Does that sound fun?
I love it. Sounds
cool.
Great.
So for the people that don't know, which would shock me, right? Because I mean, you have been so kind to share my stage and so many other events that people ask you to speak at, and you've been in the industry for a long time. Give them just a little backstory. Who's Christophe Choo?
Basically, I came from a regular family in LA. My mom was a hairdresser. My stepfather was in the art business. I wanted to be rich and live a fancy life. They couldn't afford me that. So I started working when I was 12, cleaning apartments, valet parking cars at 16, and working as a waiter. I did all the jobs because I wanted a life.
Right.
And I'd worked.
But you didn't want just a life.
I wanted a fancy life.
Yes.
Luxury life. And so I'd work all week long back in those days to go to dinner one night a week.
Right.
Spend $300 in those days for dinner. So
that was a big deal as a 16-year-old.
Yeah, it was. And I did school to go to the restaurants and get facials in Beverly Hills. So
okay, so that's probably not how most real estate agents started, but everybody has their origin story.
Yeah.
So when did you first get in the business?
Well, I started because I was modeling, and my wife Gabrielle, who you know, she didn't like me being gone 3-4 months at a time with all these beautiful models, partying and having fun.
Sure.
She says, "How about getting a more stable job?" And I'm like,
"Oh, well, let's go into real estate."
No, stable. I was 18, and I'm like, she said, "How about real estate?"
Right.
And I thought, literally, as an 18-year-old, I can drive a fancy car, I can show pretty houses, be my own boss, and make a lot of money. Right. I didn't know about escrows, title, and I didn't know about any of that.
Solving problems for a living.
Didn't know. So
crazy clients.
I took my test, got my license, and I started selling real estate. It was just that simple.
Now, were you then like in Glendale, or where were you then?
So I was
living in Beverly Hills.
No, I was living with my parents in Los Feliz. Okay. So I interviewed at the Los Feliz John Douglas Company, which was the best company back in '89.
Good old Jack.
Or '88. Yes, Jack Douglas. They wouldn't hire me because the manager. She said, "What's your goal?" So I want to make $1 million a year and drive a Rolls Royce.
Yeah.
He says, "You're not the right fit for the office."
Yeah.
So I went to the next office, which was Hancock Park, and they hired me. First year, I did one sale. It was a $43,000 co-op. I made $1,732. And then
sounds like he remembers that.
Oh, I do.
Maybe a story there done.
Because I'd spent probably $10,000 to get through the year, and you know.
Right.
And so she said to me, "Well, you've been here for a year now. You've only sold like one deal. You got 90 days. You're out of the office." So I went to a seminar where I learned how to prospect expired listings.
Yes.
And then I started coaching, and that was kind of the beginning of really making money in the business.
So what year was that? That would have been
91.
Yeah, so 91, because you got in, let's see.
88 or 89.
Yeah, because we basically started around the same time, me with my dad and you.
You're working, you're working with your dad.
And so Christophe's one of the original clients from my dad's company, like many moons ago. But like we had dinner last night. Like we've just become friends over decades and watching each other, you know, grow and evolve. So tell us about the transition from Los Feliz, because the way you described it last night, it wasn't Los Feliz the way maybe Dave Robles thinks about Los Feliz, or my friend Claudia Cole, who lived on the top of the hill, and they were like the hoity-toity family. Like, you know,
we were south of the boulevard. That's where the poor people lived.
Right.
But luckily, my parents bought a house in that area. Right. South side of the tracks. And so when I was working in Hancock Park initially, I was doing pretty well after 5-6 years of prospecting. I think my top year was like 65 deals, but they were mostly first-time buyers, second-time sales, average price.
Like second-time sales, aka expired listings.
Yeah. And I think it was 62 deals was my highest number of deals. I was one of the top agents, but it wasn't where I felt right at home.
Right.
I knew Beverly Hills was for me. You have to be in the space that you're comfortable.
Right.
And so when I was given the opportunity to go to Beverly Hills, I did it immediately and moved.
How did that opportunity arise?
I was a training director for the office, and I was in.
But you were like 5 years old. You were the training director?
I was 23. My training director left.
Yeah.
And I thought, well, I could train these people and I can make money doing that.
Right.
So I made a proposal to Jack Douglas, like a 20-page, this is what I want to do for the training department. He hired me.
Yeah.
And so I did that. And so I was at your dad's management training in Newport Beach.
I remember.
I think it was the Four Seasons at the time.
Yeah. Yep.
And Betty Graham was there and all the managers at Co-Banker. And
all legends.
Yeah.
Yep.
Shout out to Betty Graham.
And they said, have you ever thought of coming to Beverly Hills? I said, absolutely. I've always wanted to. I've just never did anything about it. So Betty says, come meet me tomorrow. Mm-hmm. And I met her and she says, would you like to join the office? I said, absolutely. I packed my stuff up and I was gone and that was it.
You switched companies or?
No, same company.
Okay.
I've always been in the same company. It was John Douglas. We became Co-Banker, but I always knew that was the best company. So I stayed, but I was just moving from Hancock Park, which is only a 5-mile difference.
Yes. But that 5 miles to maybe someone listening right now who, let's just say this person listening, they're selling $400,000 or $500,000 houses, and there's $1 million houses within minutes, right? With pretty much, I mean, $1 million could be $2 million, could be 700,000, and when you're selling $250,000 houses, that difference, not just in proximity but in price, freaks a lot of people out. You seem to be the opposite of it.
Yeah, that when you asked that question, that didn't quite make sense to me because the high-end luxury doesn't freak me out. I feel very comfortable in that realm. So people say that. I've never really heard that so much, but it's interesting. I guess people always have fears of different things.
As a coach, how often do you hear that?
All the time.
Really?
So all the time, which I'm actually sitting here listening like a fly on the wall, and I'm kind of intrigued by your mindset in terms of how you enter into luxury, because there are a lot of agents who they feel intimidated. They feel like the expectation will be greater upon them and they won't be able to deliver the results, that somehow it's harder. And I've been having this conversation with a lot of clients. I was like, tell me how people are different. Tell me how this is different, because I don't buy it. Yeah. But this is worth definitely tapping into, because your mindset is vastly different.
It's on the list.
That's really never crossed my mind in terms of that. There's
you could be my new Jeff Mays. This is a microphone.
I said that earlier.
It's really effective when you talk into it.
We should have like a training video.
I'm going to have to do it like a pre-podcast.
But I don't have a speak guard.
But no, yes.
I don't either.
So you talked about like at 16, we were talking about last night at dinner, like you're like, literally I'd work all week. I would you were like cleaning apartments. You were doing like whatever it took to create this opportunity, this lifestyle. Yeah. One could argue like, well, of course, that's why he's Christophe Choo in Beverly Hills, but how do I become that? What about today's mindset or the last 10 years mindset or the last 20 years have you learned about creating this mindset? Because there's just different levels of wealth.
Right.
And there's always someone that's going to be intimidating.
That's true.
Do you know what I mean?
Yes, that's true.
Right? You're like, oh, I got like their level of wealth. I understand their level of wealth. Woo. Right? And that's how people look at it. Yeah. Like they must be different. They must be special. He doesn't have that mindset.
Well, can I? Well, I want to hear what he says, but I have a thought too. I want to ask you.
We have quite a few friends that are billionaires. And you have a lot of friends like that too. Yeah. I don't feel any different around them than a housekeeper or someone clean. I mean, I treat everyone the same. I mean, of course, the higher end clients, treat everyone the same. Yeah. The cleaning girl at the hotel room or the valet parker, they should be treated as nicely as your billionaire clients. Yes. That's number one. Yeah. I've just never had that thought or mind. Maybe because I always searched it out. And I remember it was like 4 years into doing well. And I always believe you have to spend money to make money, number one. I said, we were talking at lunch today about coaching. And I said, I've been coaching for 29 years or 28 years, nonstop. And people are like, well, how do you pay for coaching? Or it's not about that. When I first started coaching, I wasn't even sure if my credit card would work for the $12,000, the initial fee. Yeah. But I knew in my mind, I said to Katie at lunch, I said, I knew if I spent the $12,000, I would make at least $120,000 in return the next. I just knew it. Yeah. So it was not even a question. Yes. What was the question again?
So if you and I both have studied so much on mindset.
Yes.
Daily meditations, having the right environment, like all these things that we know that just make us energetically right. Yeah. Yeah. So unpack for just a second. If someone's listening right now and they're like, okay, there's definitely a more expensive area over here. Okay. There's the inward work and then the outward work. And we're going to get to both, right? Correct. So the inward is like your mindset, how you feel about yourself. Yeah. Like, are you worthy of $100,000 commission, $1 million commission check, which one of my clients just got? $1 million commission check on one deal and he moved on to the next one. Are you worthy? Then we'll get to the outward side, which is the marketing side. And like, how do you message? And then how do you communicate? So let's unpack all that.
Which is funny about questions, because you and I were coaching. I was coaching with you at the time.
Yeah.
When I got my first $30 million listing.
I remember.
And I spent 8 hours that day. I was mentally prepared and psychologically prepared. They were friends of mine.
Yeah.
But I still spent 8 hours with the presentation, getting ready.
Right.
So that if he asked the questions, I was really, spot on responding.
Yes. Don't worry, my friends. I will be asking you about preparation. That's coming up. That's on my list too. So what do you recommend to strengthen their mindset, or maybe just create a more abundant mindset or a more accepting mindset, or how would you maybe define it? Because I'm throwing words out there.
No. So first of all, your 10-10-10 book every day. I still do that.
Yeah.
I write down all the 10 things that bother me and are in my mind. And
to let go of.
Yeah. And when you first told me about that, I thought, why would I write down all the negative things in my life? But you're taking it out of your head and releasing it
over there.
So what I actually do is I write it down, and then I'll go outside and I burn it.
I love that.
And I see that.
Do you really?
I swear.
Because I've done that a million times where I'm like, this is just driving me insane. I've got to let it go. Write the letter to the person, write to the person that passed away that I love, that I'm just so disappointed with, or something. Write the letter, light it on fire. I don't know who came up with that concept. Probably some people doing ayahuasca, what's that crazy drug thing? Like, who knows?
But to me, the burning is and I see it go in the air. So aside from that, I do affirmations every single day, usually with one of the Tom Ferry friends, 9 o'clock every morning. And we do, I do my 5 minutes, they do their 5 minutes. But one of the first things I do is I do the same kind of release, but mentally. I basically visualize all the things I'm worried about, stressed about, angry about, sad about, disappointed at. I talk about, and I literally do this on the phone. I'm like, I pull it from my toes, up my fingers, up to my shoulder, and I see it like steam coming out of a train out of my head, and it all just dissipates. Yeah. And it gives my body a more free space. Then I can do the gratitude. Yeah. And it's grateful for no matter what your day's like. I'm alive. I've got a home, a roof over my head, hot and cold water, and food, and
people that I love, people that love me, and then I talk about my intentions and my expecting miracles every day. They don't happen every day, but I'm always saying I expect magic and miracles to happen each and every day. And somehow the next call is going to be that wonderful magical miracle, and it happens. Right. So if that's an everyday thing, no matter what. Do you remember my dad used to talk about attitude, approach, and expectations? Yeah. Do you remember that? Like he's like, hey, if your attitude is like the whole world's falling apart, you see it that way. So it's the antithesis, it's the exact opposite of that, right? And expectations. If you expect good things, like I'm telling everybody, like, hey, it's the end of the year. You should have your biggest sale ever in 2022. Yeah. They're like, well, why? And I'm like, why not? Why not? Exactly. Why not just put down, I attract a $20 million transaction, $100 million when Gary Gold listed the Playboy Mansion with Mauricio. And I was like, of course. Because we sat in a workshop 2 years before. And he's like, I want to do a multi-$100 million deal. Yep. And I remember him calling me, I got it. Right. And I'm always writing down, I'm going to sell the most expensive house in Los Angeles. Hasn't happened yet, but it will. Listen, we got time, brother. We got time. So if someone was listening right now and they were like, okay, so just to clarify, the 10-10-10 is, what do I need to let go of that's holding me back? That's like that parachute resistance. The next 10 is then, what am I grateful for? And then the last 10 is, what are your intentions? What are your expectations? What are your goals? What are the things you want to accomplish? So doing something like that for a decade or so, 30 years, kind of impacts your mind. Absolutely. Yeah. What do you say to the person that's like, oh, I've tried that before? We haven't done it long enough, hard enough, and consistently enough. And like you've been talking about the 30-day no news. Yeah. I have not watched the news or listened to news since the Twin Tower collapse in 1991 and that day. Yeah. I don't watch the news. I mean, occasionally I'll listen to the news for 5 minutes on a Saturday or Sunday in the car. Just to remind yourself why not to. Just to kind of know what's going on. Just, are we open? Are we closed with COVID and all that kind of stuff? But I don't put that in my world. I don't allow it in there. I mean, if anything bad enough is going to happen, you're going to hear about it. Right. Yeah. So you know who said that first? Who? And we saw him on stage at the same time was Mike Vance. Oh, he's like, if a world war breaks out, someone will let you know. That's right. Someone will let you know. Yeah. So just stay focused on what you want. Yeah. So the mindset stuff is so important. You have a backup question on mindset? I want to see where it goes with this. I want to go back to what you were talking about earlier. Like, you had this deep motivation and longing to be in the luxury lifestyle. Yes. Mm-hmm. I think a lot of agents resistance. I think some people are afraid that they're not worth the money on the commissions, but I think a lot of agents are intimidated by the people. They talk about affluent clientele and how they're so much different. I just wonder, what was the motivation behind wanting to be living a luxurious lifestyle? Was it the lifestyle itself, or was it to be like the people living that lifestyle? Was it wanting to get away from the situation you were at? No, I had a very lovely home. It was not fancy. I mean, luckily, I will say this, I had a lot of exposure, and exposure is critical. Yeah. So being half French and half Korean, from when I was 6 years old, first thing, my parents put me on a plane on Air France by myself
I flew to France.
Remember the little
With a little lanyard.
the
and then
little lanyard, your
book.
ticket, right?
Yeah.
And my aunts and cousins picked me up. I didn't speak a word of French. They only spoke French. But I went to Europe every single summer for 3 months. Not in a fancy, I mean, on the farm with my relatives in the country, but I saw chateaus. I saw the Louvre Museum. I saw art and culture. And it exposed me. And I'm like, wow, there's a lot more out there than what I'm used to.
Yeah.
And so I wanted to be part of that. And then once I started making money in real estate, I did used to buy a lot of stupid shit, which you told me not to do, and I don't.
Yeah.
But I remember it was the first year I made $280,000, and we like to travel. So I remember we booked a 3-week cruise in the best penthouse suite on the Crystal, and it was a week in Monte Carlo at the Hotel de Paris, and then a week in Rome at the Grand in Rome, and it was. I think it was a quarter of my gross income for the year
trip.
for the trip.
Yeah.
Net. I mean.
Yeah. Yes.
But I knew I had to do it.
You're like, oh, wait a minute, I have to pay taxes.
Yeah, I didn't think about that.
Yes. That's a whole other podcast.
But what's interesting is
Miracle every day.
on this cruise with 1,000 people.
This
one of
is the key.
days
This is the key.
On the boat, we were sitting at the lounge chairs. We met this couple from Beverly Hills. We became friends.
Yeah.
So when I did physically move to Beverly Hills, my first referral was from them. A very wealthy Indonesian family had just built this 24-unit condo building in Beverly Hills.
Yeah.
They didn't want to sell it. They wanted to lease it. But this is back in like 95 or 96. They were like 4,000 to 8,000 a month rentals. And I had the whole building exclusively.
In 95, 96.
Yeah.
That's
So I was making about $120,000 a year just from strictly, and I was doing mostly double end deals on those units because they come to the sign and all that. And today, from that one referral, that one of the buyers, one of the tenants that bought, referred me to a client, that buyer and became a seller. We've done 60 million in deals.
Wow.
But it came from the cruise to the rental building to this referral to that. So
Yes.
But like I said, you got to spend money to make money. You got to be part of it, live it, be it, so people feel comfortable with you.
Right.
And then they're comfortable referring you. So,
Right.
so.
I would also make the observation, like I think a lot of people, this is just my hallucination.
Yeah.
I think a lot of people look at those who are affluent, like maybe an agent who wants to break into the luxury space, and they see a divide, like a line of demarcation between people with money and then people like me. And I think if I could, it looks like you looked at that lifestyle and said, they have that lifestyle, I want that lifestyle too.
Yes,
and
yes.
it wasn't so much about, am I one of those people? It was more like, they're people having that lifestyle, but I can too.
Yeah.
And I think that's a very distinct difference in terms of how a lot of other people look at the luxury space, if that made any sense
Absolutely.
at all.
Yeah. Go.
And what's interesting is, I was, 16, started modeling, and I was involved in the fashion world. So going to Milan and Paris and Tokyo and doing shows and all that, you meet a lot of rich people and see very expensive clothes. I couldn't afford the clothes. And of course, you get some things from the designer. It costs occasionally. That wasn't often. The old saying, fake it till you make it.
Mm-hmm.
So I was going to the Goodwill, Salvation Army. I was buying used clothes and like Armani suits and jackets and cashmere sweaters for $2 and $5. I would wear it and I felt as good as if I bought it on Rodeo Drive.
Right.
But it's all I could afford. And I remember I went to Thailand. We were very young and I couldn't afford any real watches, so I bought a whole bunch of fake watches that broke in like 2 days.
Yeah.
But I felt like, oh, look at me and my fake Cartier watch that broke.
Yeah.
So I kind of had to, feel comfortable in the clothes and all that. But that helped, certainly.
Yeah.
What's so interesting today is you think about how many people we know in the high end around the world that like the guys I talked to in Jackson Hole that they're like in jeans and like a beat up cowboy, like this kind of look, and
they're multi-billionaires.
And they're like, and the ones that are helping them buy and sell real estate, they're doing $100, $200, $300 million in sales, killing it, $15 million sales prices all day long, $25 million sales prices, and the key distinction is they're comfortable in their own skin.
You have to be yourself.
And that's where we got to get to, right?
Yeah,
You got to get
line.
to, like, if you want to move up your price range, you got to stop looking at them and start looking at yourself and saying, hey, look, everybody puts their pants on the same way.
Yeah.
Now, we're going to get into the marketing side in a minute.
Yeah.
But before I want to go back to your point. Two things, actually, you both said it. One is be aware of your confidences. So there's a lot of people listening right now that are confident that they can't go into the high end. They're confident that they're not good enough. They're confident that, only people like Christophe can do this. I didn't go to Paris or France or, growing up as a kid. So be aware of your confidences because those confidences are going to hold you back. You're confident about other things. You're confident about riding a bike, driving your car, taking a $500,000 listing. Like, what's the difference?
Agreed.
It is only the conversation that you're having with yourself. Yeah. It is only the conversation you're having with yourself.
Everything takes time. I mean, you can't expect to just jump in and move to Beverly Hills and all of a sudden you're going to sell these multi-million-dollar homes.
No.
You got to
Sarah Desimore in Miami.
Yeah. Well, and I think creating a line of demarcation where there's rich people and there's people like me, I think that is a dangerous.
That's the beware of the confidences. Yeah.
They're rich because they chose that lifestyle and went after it.
Right. And most of the, as you well know, most of the really rich people came from nothing.
Right.
Most of them didn't even go to college.
Right.
So we all started the same way, just we're in different places based on where they are.
Which is when I look at like Tim Smith, who you know well too, right? So I look at like Timmy's listing presentation. He's just like, tell me about you.
Yeah.
How'd you guys get to this place?
Yeah.
Like, how'd you guys get to this house?
Yeah.
Like, he loves the backstory. And you know what? You don't know about all human beings, not just people that are like wealthy. They like to tell their story.
Of course.
Right? It's like their favorite subject.
WIFM, what's in it for me? That's all they care about.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay, so one is be aware of your confidences, but the other one is that whole fake it to make it. Like, you and I basically grew up together in this industry. So you, like my dad driving around in Rolls Royces.
You were both like 20, 21 when we first met.
Right. I think we both celebrated our 21st birthday when we weren't 21 at Costa's at the Desert Springs Marriott, just saying, passing each other's fake IDs. But I remember distinctly hearing people like Brian Tracy, early mentors, saying that. And like, so my dad had all these fancy cars, and I had like two motorcycles to start, right? Like a Honda 125cc motorcycle, right? And I remember like he would say, "Hey, just get the cars washed on Thursday." So I would drive one on Monday, one on Tuesday, one on Wednesday, one on Thursday, and then get them all washed, right? And I would go and I would take these expensive cars, right? Completely pissed him off nonstop, but I didn't care. And I would go to open houses. I'd go to broker previews and I'd walk through these houses. I'd pull up in this fancy car. And, I didn't have a mohawk anymore, but I was still dressed in all black. And there's no way they're like, this Opie kid is not going to buy this house.
Right.
But I started to just get like, he's like, if you just walk in the steps of these people, how many stories, how many books have been written about the super, person that came from nothing, who stayed in the lobby of a hotel just to surround themselves with all these people. So,
absolutely.
So they became more comfortable in it.
Yeah. And get back to the question about confidence, how do you become confident? Well, first of all, you have to resonate with the luxury. That's really not just want to do it because you want to make money or you want to do it because it's cool, or you want to be on $1 million listing or whatever. That's not the reason. Do it because it's in your gut and your soul. If it's in your gut and your soul, then you have to figure out, okay, do I know all the architects, whether it's from the 1920s
You're already
to
going
modern
to
Paul
my
McLean's?
preparation. Yep.
Who are the interior designers?
Yes.
This painting, that piece of art, that piece of porcelain, that antique car, is it a Bugatti worth $2 million or is it a fake Bugatti?
Right.
So you got to really know.
Do your homework.
Yeah. Oh yeah.
Like do your homework, study, prepare, learn what's important to these people. How do they speak? What's important to them? Where do they travel? Right.
And I always knew that at junior high school, because my yearbook teacher in junior high school, she was an artist. She was really cool and she really got me. So she had all of the best magazines, W Magazine and Vogue to Italy and Europe. And I would look at these magazines and I'd see the beautiful jewelry and the clothes. I'm like, whoa, I never knew such things existed. So I studied all that stuff. Yeah. And like now when we go to parties, I'm like, oh my God, that Bulgari necklace with the tourmalines and all that. Like, how do you know it's tourmaline? I mean, people appreciate when you take the time to understand who they are, what they are, and that you know it. Because they don't buy that expensive stuff just to wear it. They buy it to show off too. Right. And they appreciate when people recognize what they've done and their accomplishments.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a lot actually to unpack there, but let's talk about let's just talk about luxury listing presentations. Okay. Right. Yeah. So give us an example of like you're going on a big appointment. What kind of preparation do you do on the seller, on the house, on the neighborhood, more than just pulling the comps, right? Like give us just walk us through like a typical, hey, I'm going on that appointment. It's a 7 million, 10 million, 20 million, 100 million, whatever the price is.
So when I got my first $3 million listing, I had spent years, my highest sale before that was 5 million. But I'd spent years, we have broker caravan, which I go to every Tuesday, and I looked at all the houses. And
why do you do that?
You have to know what you're selling.
Oh, okay. Preparation. Good. Just
and I remember I had a friend in the office. She was in the business for 45 years. She was older. She'd come with me on caravan because I wanted a friend to come with me. Yeah. And she'd say to me, why are you wasting your time looking at all these $5, $10, $15 million houses? You don't have buyers for that. I said, I may not today, but if I do tomorrow, I know what to show them.
Bingo.
So, my high sale was 5 million, and I would be invited because I was known to the big private showings of like 20 million. There weren't a lot of 20 millions in those days. Yeah. And so I got the call for this listing appointment, and I knew it was a very expensive one. So I was mentally prepared. And every caravan, I would get the brochures, and I had literally those 3-ring binders with the plastic sheets. I had the brochures, and I had Holmby Hills one, I had Bel Air one. I had all the brochures, and I would rent
of all the cities.
No, of the actual brochures of the houses.
Yes. But I mean,
Could you pick
meaning
them up
by
as you went?
area.
in Bel Air, in
Yeah.
Beverly Hills, in Beverly Hills Flats, and, right?
And I
So
kept them all
yes.
because I thought if I'm getting a
Smart.
big listing, I know how to do it. So, I got the call at 8:30 in the morning at the office on a Sunday. iPhones weren't even out yet.
Right.
And they said, we want you to come tomorrow. We're going to be leaving the country. We're going to sell the house. And they were friends. Even though I was mentally prepared, he was a major businessman. He had made his company go public, and he sold it for like $400 million and bought this. At the time, he bought it for like $16 million for his wife as their wedding gift. And then they were selling it 10 years later. So I was mentally prepared. I knew the comps, but I wanted to be prepared for any objection he had. I spent 8 hours preparing a really great presentation. 8 hours I spent that
Give
day.
us an example of what was in it.
Oh, comms, specific marketing plan and letter and all that stuff. And I brought all that stuff. And the wife didn't meet. We met at 8:30 the next morning. It was just me and him. I'd been to the house. I didn't walk through it. We sat in the entryway of the house on a little sofa. And going back to that more and more, I didn't show anything. I said, Steve, do you absolutely have to sell your home? I swear
Bill Pipes would be so proud.
The 5 minute, the 10
Right,
minute, the 20.
right,
And he
yes.
says, well, yes, he says, we're moving out of the country. It was October in July because, we're moving out of the country. I said, great. Are you willing to price your home to sell? And he says, well, what price do you think it should be? I said, it's worth 23 to 24
Wait, you
million.
didn't do? I study homes and prices every day, so I assume that. Remember that
Yes,
script?
and
Listen, we're like really dating
I
ourselves
said that
right
afterwards.
now.
Yeah.
Yes.
So I said it's worth 23 to 24 million.
Yeah.
So what should we list it for? It says 26.5. He says, no, I'm listed for 30 million. I said, okay. I said, if I sell your home in the next 30, 60 days, is that okay with you? He says, no, because the kids are in school. We're not leaving till July.
Got it.
I said, okay. So then if that's the case, I need a 1-year listing agreement, right? And this took a lot of guts. I had written in the contract 6% commission.
Yes.
And he says, how much is your commission? I said, 6%.
Yeah.
And he says to me, I'm only paying you $1 million to sell this house. So I scratched it out. I wrote in $1 million. We sold a year and 2 months later for $23.5 million.
Yeah.
And he paid $1 million.
That's amazing.
So that's what he said.
So what's beautiful about that, and I've done this so many times, and you and I just had this conversation earlier today. If you prepare really well the day before, you don't always use all the materials, but you know it. You walk in with this sense of confidence. Like it doesn't matter what they're going to say. Like I'm ready because I took the time.
Yeah.
Do you think agents that are listening to this right now, maybe an individual that's like, okay, I want to go into the higher end, should they grab all those high-end brochures?
Absolutely.
Should they go preview all those houses?
Absolutely.
Should they get to know the communities?
Yes.
Should they study all the architecture?
Yes.
Know who the builders are?
Go to the
know
parties.
who the bad builders are?
Yep.
Well, before they get invited to the parties, right? Because they may not get invited to the party.
That's true.
But you know, one thing, and I swear you told me this, and this I give you credit all the time. So if you didn't, please let me know. He's not going to do it now. He's going to say, of course that was me. Is you need to take your database and you need to figure out who do you already know that's there. Right?
Yeah.
Do you remember like that? Like I was like, yeah, like, well, you need to know who do you know that's already in these communities.
Right.
Because you probably already have ins.
Right.
And we're constantly like, how do I market myself to get them to call me? Well, who do you know that already lives in an 850 or a 900,000 or a million or a 10 million or a 30 million, right?
Absolutely.
And what's
Was that
interesting-
you?
No, it was not me. Honestly, it was not me.
Well, I've given you credit for like a
thank you.
decade. So yes.
But also now, social media didn't exist 10, 11 years ago, really.
Yeah, right.
Now it does. And now I was telling people at lunch today, I said, the super rich are part of a private club. They're all on this kind of, not really a private club, but they go to the same places around the world.
Right.
Like we see our friends in parties in Miami at the Art Basel this week.
Right.
Like there's 40 friends that are there. And then all of a sudden this one's having a party at Omar's, the new club. And then this one's there. I'm like, oh my God, you know them. And they're like, oh my God, you know Christophe. People like that in that world of high end. They like it that you know their friends, and it's a
So
comfort
how do you
level.
how do you do that on Facebook without being Stockolina?
You can't. No.
So how do you do it? Because one of my questions, ready? Look at this.
Yeah.
Marketing, content, networking, and follow up.
Yeah.
Let's go to networking.
Yeah. I don't
You've done a pretty good job networking yourself into some pretty fancy situations.
Yeah.
What are your 3 most important hacks for networking effectively, especially if you're looking to move your price range up?
I would say number one, what helped us a lot was being involved in charities.
Okay.
Or, whether it could be homeless youth or saving trees.
The number of times I've seen you take the photo of you sleeping on the streets
Yes.
on a
cardboard box and a sleeping bag in the
right?
rain. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. You just do, and it's not charities is not the right word. Helping people or situations that could use your support and your influence.
There you go.
I don't like the word charity.
Yeah.
And the reason I started with homeless youth, it came out of the blue. A friend of mine said, well, Covenant House, California is looking for a new board member. Was this something you'd consider? I'm like, okay. And I went there and I thought, well, I didn't have a lot of support from adults when I was young with my dreams because they didn't understand them. So I thought, well, this is my opportunity to give back to the youth that are on the streets, help them see that people care. And if they have a dream and a vision, are willing to work hard to get there, there are people that will support them in that effort. That's why I did it. I didn't think about business and meeting rich people. It wasn't that. It was just, what can I do to give back to help those that need it? So
that's beautiful.
I think if you do everything from that perspective of coming from a good place of love, kindness, and goodness, the universe will take care of you. Maybe not when you want to, just when they choose to.
Right.
I think that's a really important distinction, because being involved in these causes is certainly a networking component to your business.
Yes.
But I think it's interesting, like a lot of people might be cynical and say like, oh, people only get involved in these things because they want to be able to network with other people. I'm like, no, what's happening is there's a level of bonding at work here, because you have people like you and like them who are having the same thoughts about, I want to give back in this capacity because they do care. And then you connect over that. I think,
And you that could be at your church, your synagogue,
anywhere.
that could be, your local chamber, right? Business, business groups.
Do you guys remember Le Tip?
Of course.
So I was asked to join Le Tip Beverly Hills many years ago, and I thought, oh, this is great. I'm with 50 people. They're all doctors and lawyers and all these. I'm like, oh, I'm going to get a lot of business. Zilch chose nada for 4. I mean, they would pass out those referrals because you're required to, and it was, I'm nothing. Like when I joined Covenant House, I think 2 weeks, it was, once a month board meetings and really helping the cause. And the president of the board said, I got some properties I want to sell. Can you help me with it? So that started, and then I did other business through the board. But I never even thought, honestly, when I joined the board, that was going to happen. I just wanted to help the youth.
Yeah. And well, that was like we talk about authenticity. It's
the same word in my head.
But that is it, right? Like I support CASA, and it's all children's related things that I support, right? So it's like it's very real for me. Like I'm not there to like, gosh, you think I'm going to get a coaching client out of this? Like and I think a lot of people network with that intention. Versus like, hey, can I meet some cool people? We all have something in common here, right? Like, let's figure it out. So that's one. What's two? One, as you said, is get behind things that you're passionate about. Right. What's number two?
What was the question again?
What are your top 2 or 3 hacks for networking in the higher end?
Okay, one-on-one networking. You go to a lot of events, you meet people, you like people, you have commonalities. Take it to a different level. Don't be cheap. Take them out to lunches and dinners and get to know them, or support their cause. They're doing a charity event.
Right.
Buy a ticket or buy a table.
Yes.
If someone asks you something to support them, if you can afford it, do it.
Yeah.
Because then they see that you care about them, and they will hopefully care about you too down the road. So I think that's an important factor. What I think going back to everything, people want to be in luxury but are afraid or not confident. If you're afraid and not confident, either you choose to change that mindset and be different, or if you really feel that way instinctively, then maybe it's not your realm.
Right.
You don't have to be a luxury agent. I mean, everybody wants to be a luxury agent. They think, oh, the big commissions. But as I talked about today, the bigger the commissions, the higher the highs, and the lower the lows.
True.
Yeah.
We're gonna unpack that before we're done. Go.
Can I ask a question too? Like when you're at that listing presentation, just going back for a second, you talked about really preparing ahead of time for their objections.
Yes.
I have a sneaky feeling that the objections you anticipate are different than what other agents who might be afraid of that presentation might anticipate. What kind of objections would you might have prepared for?
In my experience, the objections are commonly the price differential. My price is different than theirs. The commission, length of term of contract. Those are really the main objections. I mean, the other stuff. Sometimes people don't want to spend the money on staging or stage it because you live there or whatever. But
isn't that funny? Because that's every price range.
Yeah.
It's true.
It's commission, price, and term. That seems to be the number 3 things.
So, Christophe, we love you. Everything you're saying sounds fantastic, but God, like 5% commission. Like, I just talked to Jason Pantana. He said he'd do it for like 4.
3.
Yeah. 3.
I get it, Tommy. It sounds like a lot of money, right?
I just know that I just feel like we have a beautiful home and it's going to sell quickly. Nothing in this area ever comes on the market. When it does, it's gone. Yeah. So I just don't feel like I should be overpaying.
Yeah. You do have a beautiful home, and it probably will sell quickly, but that doesn't always happen. What are you looking for in the agent you choose?
As I said, like we chose you because we love your video first marketing. We believe in that. I'm a huge fan of that work.
Yep.
I think it's that. I think, obviously multiple people said, oh, Christophe did a great job for us. I actually reached out to a few of your people and actually got the scoop, and everybody said the same thing. You're just warm, you're authentic, and you're really good at what you do. And so we want you to like fight for us and get us the highest possible price and make this process as easy as possible.
It's true. And, Jason's an amazing agent. There's no doubt about that. And I'm assuming you're a businessman. I mean, you built your company. You made a fortune in that. You're a tough negotiator.
Yes.
So I assume Jason came in, he asked for a full commission, and you got him down and negotiated him down to the price, right?
I did.
You did?
I did.
Is that the kind of agent you're looking for? Someone that can, just like that, chop down their commission by 1 or 2%?
The greed in me says yes. The businessman in me says, I hear what you're saying.
I mean, think about it. You negotiate all the time. Yep. Would you agree that 1% in a negotiation on a $10 million house is what, $100,000, right? Don't you think that could be gone in a split second? I have the ability and the guts to fight you, a major businessman, to fight for what I believe is right for my commission. Wouldn't you want me on your side in your court on the boxing match fighting for you?
Can we just go to 4.75?
Well, I'd like to do that, but you like me, right?
Yeah.
And I like you. And do you feel I can sell your home?
God, I love you.
Then let's just get started. And often I just say,
I'll do it for 6. I'll do it for 6.
I'm tapping out.
No, but commission compression has been really a serious issue.
Of course. And that's why I bring it up, because that is, it is very real.
Yeah.
Right?
Very real.
But it's very real in every price range.
Yeah.
To be really clear.